ticket, which you were given at the door for our special drawing later.
High Fidelity magazine wrote, "John Bayless has an extraordinary imagination, sly wit, tremendous musicality, and an imposing technique." John Bayless was born on the windswept plains of West Texas in Borger. Am I saying that right, Borger? A small oil town 40 miles north of Amarillo, which should have been Amarillo, but he started to play piano by ear at age 4. His mother, a singer and musician, was his first teacher. John's childhood heroes were Leonard Bernstein and Liberace, and at age 13, he was the youngest church organist in the state of Texas, playing for his hometown Baptist church and for services at the synagogue in Amarillo. When he was 15, he won a scholarship to the Aspen School of Music, where he met and first studied with the legendary Adele Marcus. At 17, he was off to New York to attend the Juilliard School of Music and further his study with Miss Marcus, who shaped his musical gifts and encouraged his extraordinary ability in improvisation. John was invited to participate as a composer in the inaugural class of New York University's Musical Theater Master Degree program. Took a long time to get him to practice there, where he studied with Leonard Bernstein, Julie Stein, Arthur Lawrence, Betty Comden, and Adolph Green. Maestro Bernstein was particularly intrigued with John's talent at improvisation and composition, and a lifelong friendship ensued. John was an artist in residence for the London Symphony Orchestra's Leonard Bernstein Festival and performed at a gala for Queen Elizabeth II. He also served as an associate conductor for the 1981 production of Leonard Bernstein's Mass at the Kennedy Center. As a teacher, John has conducted master classes at Juilliard, Kent State, Denison University, University of Houston, and the Royal Academy of Music in London. He orchestrated an original composition for left hand to premiere in Moscow's Tchaikovsky Hall with the Moscow Virtuosi Orchestra. I don't normally speak Russian, so I don't know. Close. Okay. John Bayless is a worldwide concert pianist, composer, prolific recording artist, master teacher, and artistic director for the Waring competitions. We proudly present the talented John Bayless, speaking and demonstrating the art of improvisation.
There we go. As they would commonly say in Texas, this is like old home week. So many friends and beautiful faces and wonderful relationships that I've developed and been fortunate enough to have here in the desert. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. I want to speak tonight about several things. The lost art of improvisation, what does that mean? How is that important in our world of piano playing and music making? I think I may say some things that are controversial, that might offend some people. But I can't help it. I can't do it. I have to say what I have to say. I think the world of piano playing is in crisis because I am fortunate enough to serve on this piano competition at the Junior Waring international piano competition, and I hear so many people and so many young people, they come here and they play. And what disturbs me about the whole thing, while they're talented, yes, they play fantastic, they play all the notes, they play the rhythm right, but that's it. Nothing goes beyond the footlights. And I think it's a way and a problem in the way they're being taught. Improvisation, the way how this connects and the reason that it is so important, I want to read you a definition of improvisation from the Groves Music Dictionary. The art of composing and performing music simultaneously. This is a primitive art of making music. In other words, I often felt like when I'm improvising and doing things, I'm in the past, I'm in the present, and I'm in the future. Because I have to know where I'm going. I have to know what I've done and where I started, right? Problem with teaching music and children and young people is that while the printed page of a Beethoven sonata is what we respect and what we adhere to, what we want to play the best, and what we do what the composer wanted. But the problem is, we get so locked up in that we lose the individuality, we lose the spirit of the individual person that is able to communicate. Okay, one of my favorite pianists is Lang Lang. He got a scathing review in London last week while he played the Mozart concerto. Everybody loved it, but the critic. I mean, most people. These are generalizations. The reason I love Lang Lang is exactly what I'm talking about. He does not sacrifice the music and his own imagination and his own conceptual ability to grasp a piece. And he plays across the footlights. Okay, which brings to my next point. I don't believe teachers in conservatories today even talk about what the audience wants. It's all about what the composer wants. I was fortunate enough in my training to have a teacher that said to me, Bernstein said it, and so did Adele Marcus, that these people are coming to hear you. They paid money. They paid money, and they want to hear you. And they want to hear something that they have not heard before. And it's your job to give it to them. Okay, when you have that thought in the back of your mind while you're studying your pieces, of course you're not going to play just for the audience, but they're there to enjoy something. They're there to have fun. They're there to enjoy the music and to feel. I mean, after all, that's what the music is about. It's feeling, right? Bernstein said there are only two kinds of music, good and bad. And I believe it. I want to tell you a little bit briefly about my background. I was raised in Texas, believe it or not. And I started playing at 4, and I played what I heard by ear. I could hear a song, Itsy Bitsy, Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, and I could play it. I could play anything I heard on the radio. I could play church music like it was going out of style. I didn't know how to read. I didn't care that that first line was E. G, be every good boy does it, whatever. I didn't care. It was the music, it was the sound, the emotion of what that, like, you couldn't keep me away from it, right? And my mother almost had a nervous breakdown teaching me how to read music. It took 3 years and a lot of screaming. You know the pieces. So they would do that, I would go. Whatever. So I finally learned how to read. By the way, you have to know how to read music to get into Juilliard. And I, of course, played for every conceivable event in our little town. I played for graduation when I was, the high school graduation when I was in 6th grade. Played for all the choirs, big monumental works by Randall Thompson and all of these things, because I could play them. But I was a very busy person. And I learned a great deal. Funny story, I became the organist of the church, 13. You know how many churches there are in Texas? So, okay, imagine the scene. The scene is big sanctuary, seats 350 people, and I'm seated at the organ. Big noise. And the choir is where the choir usually is. So I'm playing. My mother's in the choir. So one Sunday, I had just heard this incredible, dramatic, fantastic piece on the radio. I didn't know what it was, but I decided to do an improvisation on it. So I'm playing lots of triplets and big bass notes. So I was going to town. It was like the organ was smoking. It was crazy. I looked up at the choir and my mother's going. I can't believe. And then I looked to the back of the sanctuary and my father went. So I got home. I said, what was the problem with that? It was great. It was nice. It was dramatic and people loved it. I don't know what the song was about. I said, what was the song about? It's about a whorehouse in New Orleans. Okay. Several other experiences of that nature. One could say that I'm a ham. I love an audience. And the thing about it is, I was not very popular in high school and junior high. Anybody that played the piano in Texas and didn't play football, forget about it. So I would play songs of the day. After the House of the Rising Sun, I changed my style. And I would play Hey Jude. I would play Summer in the City. All of these great rock songs were disguised like a chorale. You know? I had, again, go So the kids, the high school kids, would sit in the back of the sanctuary, and whenever they would recognize a song, they would hold their hands up. So the minister's wife courted me one night, and she said, "Young man, we know what you're doing." I said, "What am I doing?" She said, "You're playing this popular music, this secular music in this church. It's not working. It's not good." I said, "It is working. They're bringing the young people. They love it. I'm doing my ministry." Anyway, that was kind of my upbringing. Then when I got to Juilliard, I became the go-to person. If someone needed a theory assignment, a fugue or a counterpoint or something written, they'd come to me, because it'd be very easy. I'd make a few bucks. Funny story, my best friend in the world, she lives in Milan. We talk every day on Skype. I'll never forget it. She came into my apartment in New York. I was third year student. She was a second year. She said, "John, please write me a two-part invention. I have to have it by tomorrow." I think I'll write it to you. And so I dashed it all. The next day she comes home and she said, "I'm so embarrassed." I said, "What happened to you, Madeline?" She said, "The teacher loved it so much, he wanted me to play it. And I couldn't play it." Love that. Anyway, in 1984, I got my first recording contract, and it was to do 2 albums celebrating Bach's birthday. Bach was 300 in 1985. So the first album was called Happy Birthday, Bach, and the second album was Bach Meets the Beatles. And Happy Birthday, Bach is still available. Is a compilation of all the famous, most fantastic tunes and melodies of Bach, improvised with Happy Birthday running through. Counterpoint, all throughout the place. The second there was a record, so the second side was how Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, Ravel, Stravinsky, and Gershwin would have said Happy Birthday. Bach Meets the Beatles, this is what it is. The record company said, "Can you play the Beatles music in the style of Bach?" I said, "I think so." And I told my mom, I said, "Mom, they want me to play the Beatles in the style of Bach." She said, "Well, you've done that. Don't you remember you played Hey Jude and all that?" Okay. So that record, those two came out in '84. And I came up with a follow-up record because the Beatles record was a success. And so the next one was called Bach on Abbey Road. And that was the rest of the Beatles songbook in the style of Bach. That started me. I said to Bernstein, I said, "You know, I don't want to be known as a happy birthday chap. The Beatles guy." I mean, he looked at me and said, "Are you crazy? What's wrong with that? At least you got a hook." So it made me feel a little better. But I built a career, thank the Lord, on improvisation. And the important, I could go on for 3 more classes about this because it's so important to open the spirit of the people that are studying and not be so glued to this. Yes, I mean, the notes are important, and the fortes and the pianos and the decrescendos and the louders and all of those, they're very important. But they're road signs. They're road signs. They're guiding. This music is not, in my opinion, is not sacrosanct. It's to be experienced and enjoyed. In 2008, I was asked to do a film, be a part of a film, called Bach and Friends. And with Bobby McFerrin and Joshua Bell and other people, P.D.Q. Bach. And I was very honored to be on that film. And I want to show you something tonight. This happened 2 months, the filming, before I had a stroke. So you will see both hands. The first section is me talking about improvisation, and then I actually improvise with another person, another guy. We'll see it. We play together, and I think you'll enjoy it. Okay? The main driving force, the main way I've made music all my life. It's like Papa Bach handed that to me. Make Penny Lane Tajik. In Bach's time, and probably before, and certainly thereafter, but not now, improvisation was a huge part of a musical life, a huge part of a musical education. In the recording of Bach meets the Beatles, they really were improvs. I knew what songs I was going to do, and I knew the mood that I was going to create with them. In Bach's period and Mozart, the cadenzas and concertos, they didn't write those out. They did them differently every night. And that was, if you will, the American Idol moment. That's when the stars were born, when they would show off. They would show their command of the keyboard and be able to smoke, if you will, at the keys. Just amazing stuff coming out. I've been challenged today by a young man named Anatoly Larkin. We're going to give it our best shot. In the Baroque period, the time of Bach, events were staged. They were happenings. Spontaneous, combustible moments, if you will, where keyboard players, organists, harpsichordists would duel. And these contests were the reality moments in that period where they would get together and see who would outdo the other. During improvisation, you have to think on your feet. You discover new things, and over time you build almost an intuition about what the other person is thinking, and those are the magical moments. Off we go, and soon we are in completely uncharted territory.
we modulate keys and end with this really Rachmaninoff-like fanfare. I remember reading a story, this famous story of Bach and his competitor. He had been challenged, Bach had been challenged to a duel, if you will, to improvise. And each contestant was given a period to warm up. The one who was challenging was this French keyboard player named Marchand. He goes to the site, Marchand goes to the site, and I can just see it. He peers in and leans his ear in to the sanctuary where the organ was, and he listens to Bach warming up. It's more than he could bear. He bolted. He bailed. He left town. And all the public was there to see this. And what did Bach do? He did this big 6-hour improvisation marathon. It's just, I would have loved to have been there.
That's the ending while they're queuing up the next. Huh? Oh, I'm on. If you know, did you think I didn't know when it was going to end? So I had heard. I put something. In practice, that Rosemary Clooney said to me that Sinatra had told her when he did the album of duets, you know, with all the other people of duets, that he always had to have the last word. The last phrase was his. So I wanted to make sure the last phrase was his. Mr. Michael, are we ready for scene 2? Oh. Let me explain what the second part is. My father went on tour with me, and he handed me the newspaper one day. He was driving, and he said, "This is interesting," and it was U.S. News, whatever, USA, whatever. You know that magazine, that paper. It's all good. So anyway. He, at the bottom, it says, famous doctor in Johns Hopkins University creates brain scan that shows what's happening when you're improvising. So leave it to Dad. He said, this is interesting. So when I was asked to do the Bach film, I told the filmmaker, I said, there's a guy here in Baltimore where he lives. Convenient. Maybe you would like to do an interview with him or something. Well, this is the next part. And what it is, this doctor at Johns Hopkins research, did brain scans of what happens when people are improvising, and then what happens to the brain when they are just playing music that they've practiced. A whole different circuitry, a whole different thing happens in the brain. So you're going to see me in an MRI now. That's my favorite thing. Michael?
Just a few months ago, I was on the road
There you go.
with my dad. He gives me this piece of paper, this newspaper from USA Today, and it says, "Scientist has developed brain scan for improvisation," or something like that. And I never envisioned that I would end up on that table in an MRI study.
Okay, John, now we're going to record you improvising. We're going to be recording all of the notes that are coming out of your keyboard, and we want you to basically play whatever improvisation you like on that Bach melody, and feel free to start when you like.
What I found amazing was here you're lying in this cylindrical, confined space, but when you look up, he's invented this mirror, and you can literally see what note you're playing, and it's like you were looking at it directly. And then after, what was even more fascinating in a sense, was that he had printed out or had on a computer screen the notes that I had actually played. That was quite wonderful.
That was great, John. I think we got exactly what we need. How are you?
Good.
Now, this portion of the brain is during improvisation, shows areas that are kind of cool spots as opposed to this hot spot. And those cool spots are areas that are going down in activity that are basically kind of turning off. I always really gravitated towards music. I took piano lessons. That was my first sort of formal instrument. I always remember a time when I was learning music. As a child learning piano with the Suzuki method, which is what I learned, Bach and music are the same at that level.
And then you went in G, one of the first things I ever learned when I was a child, 5 years old.
So what you can see here, John, on the screen is brain images that correspond to blood flow during regular memorized piano playing. So for example, when you're playing something that you really learned and internalized and you're not improvising at all, but you're just doing the act of playing the piano, these are the areas that we found to be active during our study. And they correspond really to things related to sensory processing. And you can see your auditory cortices light up and motor cortices light up, and those are the things that are involved physically in the act of playing the piano, because you have to be able to hear it and you have to be able to move your fingers and play what you want. Now, if we look at this brain scan here, this shows us differences that take place during improvisation in comparison to memorized or pre-learned music. If you look at the combination of things in the prefrontal cortex, we found that the area responsible for self-expression went up, whereas those areas that inhibit outflow went down. So in a way, you were turning off the sensor and trying to promote the flow of new ideas. You know, in some ways, this inhibition that we're seeing in lateral areas actually has to do with letting go. I think really shutting down everything that kind of keeps you in the here and now, in the present tense, and takes you to some other altered state of consciousness where, whether it's sort of a transcendent musical experience you had in the past that is so deeply internalized that you can kind of get there again mentally.
Trial very instantly.
Exactly, and I think, I hope that what we're seeing here are the neural underpinnings of what is sort of a magical musical process.
I
don't ever remember a time when I could conceive of knowing music without knowing of the music of Bach. In Bach's day, when he was at the keyboard improvising, he probably entered a very similar, very analogous neural state of activity where his front of the brain regions were highly active and his filtering mechanisms were off. I really, truly think that likely took place. It's become very remarkable to me that I've been able to take musical questions and medical questions and really try to merge the two and use what I've learned in a creative way to try to solve problems pertaining to what I view as the greatest mystery, and that's music and how the brain accomplishes music.
But there you go.
Amazing what you can do with 35 plastic piano keyboard.
35. And 2 notes. The next piece that you'll see is it's on the DVD, the box DVD. It's a performance of or a piece that I actually came up with when I was about 15 years old. And the reason I want to play it for you is because to show you that most composers start with improvising, and it refines the music refines the more and more they go, okay? So, in the beginning, this piece was not as complicated or as refined as it is now. You hear the final version. It is a piece called Amazing Grace, with the Dies Joy Man's Desiring, a Bach. Amazing Grace, I did it for the organ, was in the pedals, and the Dies Joy Man's Desiring was on the keyboard. That's how it started. And it's grown into, when it grew up, this is what it became.
It will be just a couple more minutes, sorry.
Any questions? Seriously, yeah. For me, it is, absolutely. Well, I think that they had, I mean, first of all, the spontaneous combustible moment of thinking of a musical idea, a melody or something. You have to go to the piano, you have to go to this and play it. And therefore it evolves and it's totally the genesis of creative composition. Huh? Yeah. It's a dangerous thing. A creative mind is a dangerous thing. Anybody else have a question while we're getting this ready? Yes.
Is the melody somehow hidden inside or on the improvisation? Are there certain notes that you need a key to impact that melody to make it more than it is?
The question or the comment was, yeah, I am. It was if there's the melody is embedded in your mind, right? And if there are other notes that can make it better, I think so. One of the exercises that I give students or that I talk to them about is taking like a first line of first phrase of a Chopin nocturne, and instead of going what the music says. What's the melody? So, okay, what if you change one of those notes? Where does that lead you? Where does that take you to the next thought, you know? but you get the idea where you change one note and it takes you into a whole other place, a whole other galaxy, if you will, you know? And but you will be surprised to say to somebody, to a young kid, make that a B natural and not a B flat, or a D flat and make it a D natural, or take an F sharp. So, they freeze. They freeze. And that's what is I feel is a crisis of this generation of piano playing of study, because you shouldn't freeze it to be free. Free. You know? So what if you make a mistake? We all make mistakes. You know? We're not perfect. It's just anyway, that's my my message. Are we ready, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, this is Amazing Grace and Jesus Joy Magnifier simultaneously. I have a very nice treat for us. Professor Norman Krieger at USC, he's on our artistic board at the Virginia is like a brother to me. He and I went to Juilliard together. We knew each other since we were 18 years old. He's a teacher, professor at the university, and he sent one of his top students to play for us tonight, who he said he improvises. And I think he would really enjoy coming and playing and improvising for your friends. And so I would like, please, he's from China. He's 27 years old, doctoral student at USC. His name is Feng Bien. Say that. Feng Bien. Feng Bien. Right. So, Maestro, what do you feel like playing? Why don't you play the Rachmaninoff, just a little of that?
A little bit of that?
Yeah, the Rachmaninoff Etude low, right?
Yeah, almost 39, number one.
It's in E flat minor. It's a very beautiful piece. But there's a method to my madness, why I want you to play it. Play this. No, I'm just easy. I want you to play, just play me the melody. Right. It sounds like a love song, doesn't it?
Sure.
It sounds like, when I first heard it, I thought it sounded like Love is a Many Splendid Thing. Love is a many splendid thing. Anyway, why don't you just take that melody and just make up something? Just anything. Okay. Your style, any style you feel comfortable. Yeah. Huh? With the accompaniment. Just like, okay, I'm going to steal this melody from Rachmaninoff. This is what I do. I love it. Now play. Can you make it like? So in other words, go completely up instead of da 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 da. Okay. In other words, take the melody up. Okay. See what that does to you. If you want to change keys,
Okay, do you want the same mood?
oh, you want the same mood? Yeah. Or whatever you comfortable. Okay. Yes, beautiful. Just a little jazzy, a little bluesy. Sexy. Whoa. What can we play together? Do you know, anybody have a favorite song? I don't. Anyway, Sure. I'll try. Yeah, oh, don't. We're amongst friends. These people are fantastic. And with all the money they paid, don't worry about it. You want to do a name on it, or? Sure. We'll start there. Okay. Do you want to? You might, no. Maybe I'll swing, maybe I'll come around. Okay. Why don't you want to pedal or do you want me to pedal? I'll pedal? Okay. Oh, I like that. Oh, jeez. Can I get comfortable? I'm going to start it. you have to come back. All right, I don't know what time it is, but I think I'm gonna wind up here. Having fun. Have you had fun? Yeah. It's so fantastic. We should go on the road. We can have a good time. I want to end with, it's in the holiday spirit, right? So I want to play, I want to play some improvisations on some tunes. Okay? Huh? Yeah. Don't laugh. I spent Shavuos in East St. Louis, a charming spot, but clearly not the spot for me. Those Eastern winters I can't endure, so every year I pack my gear and come out here for Purim. Last summer I spent in Arizona, and the pepper way down in Mississippi. But in December, there's just one place to be. Mr. California Flora. I be lighting my menorah like a baby in a cradle. I be playing with my cradle. It's a Judas Maccabeus, but if he can only see us spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica by the sea. this evening could not have been possible without the help of Michael Roland Davis. The fantastic, are we going to take up a collection? Oh, that's right, you are.